Well, now we move into the big hitters of the day, Flea, with our final two series of the day. But apparently we can't be trusted to do that alone. So let's bring in the man himself, DJ Wheat.
You can't be trusted. I mean, there's two guys. I'm with two guys whose textures didn't load in this morning. They're just like, no one got that. All right.
I'm just gonna get some fake tanner before QuakeCon. I just can't take this anymore.
It wasn't even the paleness. It's just the white shirt, ZSX. It's just I expected a Hawaiian pattern or a pixeled pattern or like a Quake texture or something. So
yeah,
we'll work on it.
I can satisfy your needs. Don't worry.
We'll work on it. We'll work on it, gentlemen. We are nearing the end. It's just very exciting because even the results of these matches are still important, but we're just 2 weeks. Well, 2 more weeks of competition, and then a little bit of time before QuakeCon, and I'm excited.
I think as are we, right? This has been a very exciting day so far. The scorelines have been
chicken salad Flea. I mean,
oh my goodness, 40 is gonna be cheeseburger Santa again. He's already promised, so things are gonna get lit at QuakeCon. But before we get there, first Wheat, and then we've got a few more matches ahead of us. First and foremost, nosfa versus cha1n.
Yeah, we've got cha1n. Never going to lose again against nosfa, the Brazilian prisoner. It's going to be a good one. I think nosfa's had a great season so far, and he's been living up to some of the hype we gave him a couple of years ago, really, and he hasn't really developed too much since then. But this season, he has come back out and been playing some of his best Quake we've ever seen him. So he got the opportunity, I think, to even push into that top 8, which would be a big achievement for him, given the caliber of that top 6 now. It doesn't leave a lot of room for people to make it into that space, but he is somebody that is now pushing up into that zone. And as you can see from here, he's taken maps and series off of those particular players. And so he's got all of the ingredients to make a good run into QuakeCon.
Absolutely. Now, nosfa started the day in the 8th spot, so he was in top 8. I haven't looked at the updated scores, given what we've seen in the previous matches, but he is there on the very, very edge of qualifying immediately for the playoffs for day 2. So nosfa's got a lot on the line here.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, and on paper, I think this match definitely looks like it tends to teeter a little bit more towards nosfa. I mean, you opened up ZSX with a statement that I think is incredibly true, which is there was a moment where we all thought like cha1n is at his breakout moment. But it was kind of like, he's running on the football field. It's supposed to be that really thin paper that you run through, but actually it's like a brick wall. And it hasn't made much progress making it through that breakthrough. So the good news is that, you work so hard on these regular weeks and try to make it to that finals. And the finals is where it all matters, right? Your performance, your play there. So while this is super important, I think for me, it's like, what is the indicator to what cha1n is bringing into QuakeCon?
Now, both of these players are coming off of a win. nosfa beat Strong Sage last week, and cha1n took down cha1n. So both might have a bit of momentum, some forward momentum going into the series, riding that previous high. Now, I think that in just a moment, we'll be able to have the picks and bans ahead of us as well, so we can take a look at that in just a second. But yeah, this is going to be, I think, one of the closer games that we'll see today.
Oh, damn, I'm muted. I was going to say how much of it comes down to how well...
Not the first time that has happened today, Wheat. Just letting you know.
I just got timed out in the Quake chat. I'm muted.
The worst part about it is it's not even that embarrassing for you. It's really, think about how embarrassing it is for Flea and I, who have to sit there and we're listening to you, and then everyone's like, why are these idiots sitting around in this awkward silence? This is, wow. Okay, well, you get one. You get one. Or
I'm just not going to speak now. Someone else can go.
Okay, okay, Dan's gonna be quiet. Wheat and I, we're gonna walk you guys through these picks and bans. Starting it off, Blood Covenant, 2 of the fastest champions in the game. Slash for nosfa, Athena for cha1n. Map 2, Veil of Nav. We're getting the cha1n versus the BJ, and then last but definitely not least, on Awoken is going to be Doom versus Strog. Wheat, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, you know, I look at Blood Covenant. I think I saw early impressive play from cha1n out of with Athena, so I'm just kind of interested to see how that's going to work out. The Veil is kind of interesting because we've seen a lot of back and forth between these two champs, and you know, it really comes down to like that BJ with the hot aim, right? When it's just like the LG's on and everything else is on. Really like to see what can happen there. But Awoken is probably the one that I think is going to be the most exciting just from the picks overall. This seems to be kind of classic matchup that we have, but I still, even after seeing these picks and bans, I still think that, you know, nosfa has this game. Is it going to be a 3-0 though? I don't know. I kind of want it to be a 2-1 just so that we go into that decider. Because again, like what I'm looking at is how is everyone prepped going into QuakeCon?
Right.
Yeah. I like cha1n's picks. I mean, I like the both picks, but I like the picks for cha1n because he relies so much on playing around his rail and playing positionally. He needs a champion that enables that. And he's got the Athena, he's got the Strog, and on Veil, he's got a BJ, but it doesn't really matter because you can open up angles on Veil. You don't need that speed. And so he's got some element of comfort to fall back on. But as I was going to say when I muted myself, a lot of it relies on if he does connect. As so often we've seen this season in particular where he just doesn't hit anything. You know, he's ending up with 25, 30% rail, and he's a player that just really relies on it because he doesn't dominate the map. He doesn't truly contest items. He loves just to play hyper positional and just whittle down his opponent. So if he doesn't really begin to build that momentum, that's when he struggles a lot.
Yeah. Now, before we get into it, first perhaps a bit of a word on their match history, because these guys have played each other quite often throughout the Quake Pro League, no less than 10 times. nosfa has won 6 out of those, cha1n has won 4, but the 3 most recent have all gone in favor of nosfa. So yeah, that's just an interesting tidbit to throw out there. I'm not sure if we're going to have predictions, but if we do, that might help chat out a bit.
Interesting. Do you know, Flea, how many of those were like on land versus were any of them?
Not just like that, no. I think most of them were just as part of, because they're both in the Americas.
Yeah, it's like an exam right now.
Jesus Christ. ZSX, you can cast with weed if this is what it's going to be like.
He's just coming throwing shade
I'm
today.
just trying to see how prepared you're going to be for QuakeCon, Flea, you know. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
I'm just kidding.
Okay.
I was just wondering. I think that actually is both indicative of nosfa's kind of run and his ability to be a little bit more consistent, and cha1n not quite breaking through that threshold. So it might be for you guys. Interrupt.
It could very well be. Now I think that we're about to load into the map. So Dan, any final words before we kick you off stream for this series?
No, I'm only joking. I mute myself. I got you guys. No, I think I agree with Wheat there. I think it's going to be a nosfa victory. I feel like somebody's just flown under the radar a little bit, partly because of the rise of Maxter over the last couple of stages, and just because the top 6 have been so solid. He's always been there or thereabouts, but hasn't cut it into it. But he's still just, he keeps progressing in his own way, and it's really good.
Great.
All right.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Dan. All right, so I think that it's just going to be Wheat and I moving on. Wheat, this is, I think, a bit of an interesting matchup also, because on the one hand, I think nosfa has the most to fight for, right? cha1n, it's mathematically impossible for him to get top 8, right? So that's just how it's going to be. He's going to have to play the group stage. nosfa, on the other hand, still has a very good shot at keeping that spot. But then on the other hand, nosfa may have the motivation, but if we look at the recent weeks, I feel like cha1n has really been starting to step things up and is kind of the one who's been performing slightly better over the past couple of weeks of the Quake Pro League. So that's going to be a clash of motivation as well as recent performance as we are loading up map 1 here.
Yeah, and you know, we have seen a lot of 3-0s this week. Last week, I think we had a really exciting week, but there's right, these motivations are changing, how people are playing, mindsets going into it. You know, so it does, though, show, Flea, just how even in the 11th hour, these last few weeks can be incredibly important for some players. Whereas at the beginning, it's kind of everyone clawing their way to the top. I really like looking at motivations from that perspective. I think it is important. It doesn't always win games. Let's be honest, everyone. You know, it is as great as we talk about it. Not everything can be a Disney movie, you know. You know, there is some clear motivation by both players, and I do think that nosfa might be sweating just a little bit more because of that top bait spot you mentioned.
And with that being said, we're jumping into it. First map of this series, starting off on the point of view of cha1n. He's gonna get the mega side of the map, use his hook to get away clean with the LG. And now the railgun will be the next item, or the weapon rather, that he wants to make a move for. And seems like nosfa is not gonna try and deny it. That's the first time today, because up until now, we've seen a lot of denial happening around that railgun. Big tribal there as well from cha1n.
No. I'm actually surprised that he went after that. But yeah, you mentioned the denial, Lee, and we saw a couple games last week where this was absolutely in play, right? Minutes going by, trying to protect that area. And, you know, for cha1n, what we've seen him so far is, right, trying to get armed up and just playing a real good positional game. I kind of like this meta that we've been seeing lately of these lights just doing more long-distance battles, and occasionally you do get those moments of really close-up chaos and things go a little wild. But this is indicative of kind of how players are playing this game, and it's this particular map, and it's really, you know, I quite like it.
As do I. Now, so far, nosfa has yet to do a single point of damage. Hasn't landed a single shot as of yet. Whereas cha1n sitting... Yeah, cha1n sitting at 340. There we go. Excellent read by cha1n. He was really just waiting, banking on nosfa sticking around, and then used that hook right in front of him just to get that horizontal momentum, close the gap, and get up in his face with the LG.
And that's got to be a little frustrating, like not having heard that hit beep. Fine. Ooh! And if there's motivation for you, Flea, right? Like not happy with it. The double rail to tie the score. I like it because that was a solid start by cha1n.
If Athena still had 3 hooks, that would have been fine. You could see it, right? cha1n jumping, looking down, hoping to hook himself to safety. Nope. Recent balance changes have kind of nerfed Athena. Now she's down to just 2 hooks. And that cost cha1n that 1 frag. Now we're all tied up once again, 1-1.
So, nosfa at the top of the columns. And yeah, I was just thinking about what you said. Hold on, we got cha1n coming in as he does hook down. And wow, nosfa decided to go back up the jump pad. Was pretty risky in that situation. He must have been pretty confident in terms of what cha1n had, and there's a chance here for a conversion here. Ooh, nice rocket right on top of that armor, but nosfa now with the lead by 1. cha1n holding off pretty well here with these defensive rockets, but that whole exchange at columns, it was risky.
nosfa is playing a very aggressive game, just sliding across with the shoddy out. Man's looking for trouble, and cha1n is letting him find it too. Sending him right back down with a big rocket to the face. Now Heavy did spawn. nosfa secures it, but he's in a bad spot. Needs to land these rails, and he does. Just in the nick of time. If he had missed just a single shot, that would have been the end.
Oh no, thinking he might be able to clean nosfa up and stop that little tear Flea, he does not work out nice from it. nosfa was very, very low, but after getting that mega, he's just basically back in the game. And it was really unfortunate in the position that cha1n was in that he did not have a rail at that point. I think nosfa knew that he was going to take a lot of damage, but he had the advantage when cha1n didn't have a rail to shoot from up top. And nosfa's run now here, he's going to rocket jump up to the middle. Nice job at least catching him there at the heavy. And with the machine gun, just mows him down. And this is starting to look, Lee, like it's kind of, nosfa's kind of starting to run away with it and really control the space here.
Absolutely, nosfa. Still doing less damage than cha1n, but evidently more efficient damage. More so when it really matters the most. Nice rails being exchanged. And heavy spawns in favor of nosfa again. Still's got 5 seconds to get over to Mega. Is he going to push this one? He does, he does. And this is kind of the thing when there's two lights going up against each other, Wheat. Like, even if you are in full control, that can change so quickly. One rocket that does, say, 50 damage and a rail, and, you know, stacks are equal again, right? You can have had Mega heavy, uncontested for 2 whole rotations, and one fight where your opponent does slightly more damage, lands 1 extra rail, and most of that just gone in an instant. So cha1n now looking to do some sneaky unreturned damage, maybe catch nosfa in the choke point, but the speed... just proving to be too much so far.
Yeah, it doesn't really work out for him, does it? Right strategy to try to bring something back and give himself some advantage, but to your point, it just didn't really work out for him at all. And I think nosfa now probably feeling pretty confident as we pass the 5-minute mark of this game, halfway through. And as you mentioned, Flea, things can switch up real fast on this one. You know, especially if those shots are hitting. Now, nosfa's going to land a rail. He's now got cha1n in the back. Knows cha1n's going to grab Mega, and cha1n just decides to disengage the safest way possible. Narrowly almost getting that rail, but wow, a very aggressive jump to the top. Does hit a nice rail. Can he get the follow-up, though? He's trying to catch him. Almost lands that rail and does land that one, but he can't finish him off. There it is. Finally, a lot of effort put in, but there is some reward at the end of that one, Flea, and now it's just a 3-point game. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh is definitely the right way to put that one. nosfa out of nowhere takes away the Mega health. And one thing that I do want to point out is that I really like how nosfa has been using the heavy machine gun in a lot of these fights. Like, yes, it was cha1n who got the frag last time, but I feel like there's been quite a few engagements where cha1n is just fruitlessly looking to land the rail, and nosfa is like, you know what, I'm just going to go for the consistent one, the heavy machine gun. And ultimately ends up with the better result. And now LG on LG, this is brutal. Both players are going to see this one through, and cha1n backs up onto the Mega.
Lee, that positioning by cha1n was actually so good. He caught him with a ton of LG damage there, but again, it's like the overall consistent issue that cha1n is working with. He hasn't been able to clean these frags up.
And now time is kind of starting to run out. 2.5 minutes for 3 frags. More than doable. Especially when you're Athena on a map like this, but Slash, arguably the single fastest champion in the entire game. And we see just how capable nosfa is on this champion, right? I mean, you've got the Athena, which allows you to hook across, but if you're as good as nosfa is, you can just do a little bit of, you know, a circle jump, slide, and bam, you can jump across just the same. So no gap too broad for nosfa either, just easily maneuvering himself here as well.
Yeah, and at this point, you know, nosfa's kind of changing it up a little bit. He's running a rotation, forcing cha1n to kind of do the same. Now, cha1n's going to answer back with 2 really nice rails, follows up with that LG. Trail does come out. It does kind of zone cha1n just a little bit, but doing the dance around this column, and there's really not much he can do. And how frustrating is this as he just continues to run away, goes for a slick little hook to the wall to try to get the vision to take his opponent out, but it doesn't work out. There's a nice direct rocket, but he can't get the job done. And
I had the same reaction as
yeah,
cha1n did.
Yeah, that's rough. That's rough.
Yeah, and you could see cha1n on the cam throwing his hands up in the air, exclaiming about that one. God, nosfa really was at like 10 points of health, and cha1n missed the final rail, unable to catch up with him, and then nosfa stabilizes. cha1n pushes in through the choke point, and that spells disaster. Now nosfa going to already secure map 1, it seems like, and that is going to be vital for him. You could see his reaction there too, a lot of relief coming out of nosfa.
Yeah.
These are critical points if he wants to end in top 8.
I completely agree, and it's you know it's rough to watch because for sure like cha1n looked really strong there in that opening 90 seconds, and nosfa is gonna snag a self-kill there to make it about 8-2. We could have one more, but I really kind of liked cha1n's approach at the beginning, right? And unfortunately, after that first frag, nosfa just kind of ran away with it, and it's kind of like I don't know, the car just accelerated. He didn't have a seatbelt on, so he just took a moment to put it on, and then he was fine the rest of the way. But cha1n, just the biggest problem with that game is there were opportunities. This could have been a 6-6 game, I think, pretty easily if some of those frags could have gotten cleaned up. And we had a couple situations, 8 points of health, 17. I think the one near the Mega was a little unfortunate because he almost had him, and then Mega is up. But those, unfortunately, those happen. But there was a few that just, you know, didn't work out. The other thing, too, is that cha1n had a couple of really good positional hooks is what I would call them, right? Like surprised nosfa a little bit, got some good LG off, but again, it came back to just not being able to score that point.
Yeah, I fully agree. cha1n obviously didn't play a bad game either, but unable to really dot the I's, so to say, and
then everything's an L.
Finish it off.
And you know, what do you?
Yeah. And you could see the frustration mount as well. Every time I glanced over at his camera and a few of those frags that didn't pan out the way he was hoping for it, you can see just the mounting frustration when it's like, damn, I land these 2 really big, difficult opening rails, right? And then he still gets away with a sliver of health and is able to restack. So cha1n now has got to turn his eyes towards map 2, which is going to be Veil of Nav, where we're seeing the cha1n versus the BJ.
Yeah, and it, you know, I think that we talked just briefly about BJ versus cha1n, but cha1n I think can zone pretty well with the turret on this map. It's you know, we've seen players approach it a lot of different ways, from the high to the mid, over near the heavy, outside of Mega, outside of Teleporter, just above Mega, all these different sort of ways that you can approach this. So I think based off that game, and I'm guessing this now is going to be server kind of a little bit more in favor of cha1n. Like I'm curious to see if cha1n can maybe find some early lead and go with it. Otherwise, I think if nosfa's kind of goes for a zoning game and maybe even doesn't really focus on mobility and rotations that much, just trying to get cha1n where he can in the middle. I don't know. I mean, I feel like I can see this game pretty much playing out pretty much in nosfa's favor. So I'm thinking a lot about what does cha1n need to do to really take this one, especially with BJ.
Yeah, I agree. This is going to be a difficult one. We've seen how powerful cha1n can be multiple times already today. It's such a strong pick on this map, especially, right, because there's so many teleporters, so many Bausmas that are critical to get around the map. And if you can set up a turret in just the right spot, it can be so difficult for your opponent to just get positioning or make a move on an item. So cha1n is extremely strong, but of course the dual wield, if you time it right, that's the difficult part. You don't want to use it in the middle of the fight, because then it's already a bit too late. You want to be able to use it just before and then have your opponent dead to rights with nowhere to run. So let's see how cha1n is going to approach this.
There were a couple of times that cha1n had some nice little traps, some good surprises for nosfa in that first game. If he can do something similar, of course he doesn't have the hook to set those up for him, but I think that's exactly how he's going to be thinking, surprising an opponent, as we're going to have a battle here right at the beginning over by the Mega, and cha1n actually kind of forcing out of there. And there it is. Oh, I like it a lot. That was actually perfect timing on that. It didn't, at first it looked like it was not going to work out too well, but really solid lock on there from cha1n, and that was incredible. Rocket jump to the dual wield. He knew his opponent was going to be at the heavy, and he got the frag. That one was a nice opener for cha1n.
Oh, there we go, another one. I'm kind of surprised that nosfa dropped down, you know, in that first fight towards the teleporter.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
cha1n still has the dual wield. nosfa has a champion that has nothing in terms of maneuverability or damage dealing ability, and still he just goes for the drop down. So perhaps a bit too aggressive from nosfa, and cha1n responding very nicely as well. And now there's a nice solid gap between the items, 10 seconds between Mega and Heavy. Heavy will be up first. And both players are looking for the better position. It should be cha1n. Oh, cha1n. Oh. I love this again, Wheat. Leaves up the item completely and just goes for the damage.
Yeah, and suddenly he's going to make nosfa think 5 times before going after those items if that keeps going. So, like, the only tool that nosfa have is knowing that, ooh, cha1n, no! No, he had it. It was right there. It was just grab it. Oh, that was his frag. And that's nice job by nosfa, like staying cool and doing it. Their cha1n brought it back. So let's see if he can keep this one on. But this has been a pretty entertaining match so far. I like what's happening here.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of fire on both sides. I think that cha1n wants to rectify something after how the previous map went, but here we go, forced against the corner, up against the wall, but survives with around 20 points of health and walks away with the heavy. Couldn't have taken that fight or secured the kill at a better time. Ooh, rockets flying around his face. cha1n's got to be careful peeking these corners. And it's just going to refocus on the item. Mega first, Heavy up next. He's got a decent lead. He's got to stay in control now.
Not quite 100% success with that dual wield, but pretty damn close. Every single time that cha1n has brought it out, minus, I think, just that one where his opponent, nosfa, just ran away. It's resulted in a frag. Let's actually lower that just a little bit. I don't think that one's going to do much, but it does force nosfa back. cha1n, though, very, very low, has to kind of retreat away. And I think cha1n's strategy only works when he's got solid control of the map, and this is where nosfa's starting to, I think, figure out that if I can control these areas, a nice steal away of that heavy, that I can start to bring this back. So you can sort of see cha1n with that control. I think dual wield becoming more dangerous without, you know, he needs to pick and choose his battles here to try to increase that lead. But be interesting to see what nosfa does to try to bring this one back.
Mega's about to spawn. Taking a quick look at the damage dealt here. nosfa, 400 points of damage over cha1n. But it is cha1n who, even though he's getting out-damaged, has had much more significant control of the items. 12 majors for cha1n, just 4 from nosfa, and that's including the Mega that he was just able to secure.
Wow.
I think both players are just kind of reluctant to take too big of a risk right now.
Right.
You know, the stacks are pretty much equal. They're aware of this as well. No one's in full control. This is really just a bit of a back and forth, trying to get into position. cha1n, I don't know if he wanted to get the rocket jump onto Heavy right away, or if he was just a second too early. But that could have been gorgeous.
I think that the idea was there. The timing was just a bit offset.
I think so too.
And that unfortunately resulted in a frag. As suddenly he's only got a 1-point lead now. nosfa landing these rails, very significant, huge rail rocket shoddy combo to tie the game and get the heavy. And cha1n is desperately in need of some type of control. The dual wield does come out to get a frag back, and that's exactly the kind of opportunity that he needs. Turret goes out. That means both of our abilities are down for the time being, and give these two players a moment to catch their breaths.
That was just greedy from nosfa, though. Like, his railgun hadn't even finished recharging, and that was the only weapon he really had before he just pushed through the teleporter right next to cha1n. Little too enthusiastic right there. And he pays the price. cha1n once again in the lead. I like what he's doing here too. Delaying the heavy, making it so that it'll be easier for him to chain both of them together on the next rotation. And at the same time, looking around for information. Maybe looking for a sneaky rail, a bit of damage on his opponent.
Now, despite cha1n continuing to have full item control for the most part, up to like 16 versus 6, you know, and in the lead, nosfa is really kind of equalizing things with these nice rails that he's hitting. A turret's down, going into the heavy, it's up. The rail just barely missing, but here's an opportunity here for cha1n. He knows exactly where his opponent is. Going to go ahead and go for it. LG out, a little bit of damage. Can he clean it up? He does, but not without taking a ton of damage on his own. And he's got to be careful here because in comes nosfa to immediately grab that frag back. And so this back and forth, there's still a fair bit of time left, just about 3 minutes and 10 seconds. But this remains a close game, maybe all the way to the end.
Could very well be. Still going back and forth. Now cha1n, 2 frags in the lead, gets the heavy. This could absolutely end up being a nail-biter. Good decision from nosfa not to stick around. Realized that he was outgunned, he was outstacked. Just evacuated the area. Got himself a rail. Oh, but that's a bad rocket to take. Back to the drawing board, nosfa.
Yeah.
He had the kind of stack that, you know, you'd feel somewhat confident to at least position yourself more towards the center, but cha1n got rid of most of that very quickly. However, unfortunately for the Canadian, those rockets from below actually helped out tremendously.
Wow.
But nosfa, yeah. nosfa caught slipping, looking the wrong direction, and cha1n
wasn't the
drops
first
down on top of
time
him.
either. You know, we saw cha1n kind of surprise in a couple similar situations where the exact same thing kind of happened. And cha1n suddenly took this from a nail biter to looking real good as a contender to just win this one. And this time nosfa just off a little bit on the timing, but cha1n gets hit. This momentum is lost as he jumped for the heavy, but he still manages to get the frag. 9-5. That's probably going to seal this for cha1n here. And I have to say, a very impressive style here. Not typically how we see games won on Vale, but it worked for cha1n, and he looked pretty good doing it.
At this point, I think it's over and done.
Yeah.
cha1n should be able to tie this one up. He'd need to meet absolute disaster for nosfa to still have a shot at even tying this one up. So I think that if cha1n just runs away, plays a defensive game, and burns time after respawns, there's nothing that nosfa can do. Especially, cha1n is going to retaliate with rockets like that.
All day, right?
All day, every day.
Oh my gosh. And look.
Woo!
Yeah, all right. This looks like a really solid cha1n right now. I mean, go back, and as we start to kind of break down this match, I think, you know, dual wield was pretty impressive. There's a lot of discipline around that dual wield, and I think what you're trying to do is when you activate the ability to really maximize its effectiveness, and that just goes so hard in terms of like making that call of where you're going to be and where your opponent is and the position you have to use it. And I know it sounds like very simple in execution, but I think what we saw in this game was really awesome execution of how BJ's ability can be used to gain that frag advantage, and then using that to get control. That's a really impressive end to this game.
It absolutely is. It's going to be a boost for cha1n moving into map 2. There was a lot of frustration towards the end of map 1, and we also saw some frustration here during map 2 when his plays didn't work out, but ultimately cha1n able to stay in control and just, you know, expand the lead that he had built over nosfa. Started with 1 frag, 2 frags, and then it's kind of stuck around, a lot of back and forth, right? Undecided for a while, but ultimately cha1n was able to bring it home. And that means, that for the first time today, we're actually going to see the tiebreaker map serve as a tiebreaker and to decide the outcome of the series.
I mean, I think across all 3 of us at the beginning, we said would love to see the 2-1, not just because of the other results of the day, but because that's kind of how we thought these 2 players should, you know, ultimately, based off of their skills going head-to-head, that just felt right. So it's good to know that, you know, the Quake universe and all the planets have aligned, and here we do get that 3rd and final match. So looking at it, Awoken, nosfa on the Doom, and cha1n on the Strogg. Really interesting because, of course, you've got Peeker, but then you've got the mobility of Doom, some mobility in Strogg. Like, this is a pretty wild matchup, right? I mean, both players have been playing really good aim-wise. You know, I don't know how this one is going to ultimately turn out. It's hard to call, but I'm glad we're here.
Absolutely, yeah. This is both of these champion picks are extremely solid for Awoken, right?
Yeah.
Now, before we jumped into this map, it was nosfa who banned the Nyx. No surprises there, right? Given the Nyx supremacy that we've kind of seen arise in the current meta on Awoken, that's a, you know, it's a pretty standard ban. If you're not sure that you can get Nyx on this map, might as well go ahead and ban her, right? But indeed, Doomslayer versus Strogg, extremely versatile champions. Both have got a useful ability. Both have got a lot of mobility, right? I feel Strogg is just faster overall, but Doom has got that verticality, the double jump, so useful around the center area of the map. And then there's also, of course, the Peeker to take into account, as well as the Berserk ability, which is very rarely used to actually deal damage to your opponent, but it's just another movement tool, right? Just to get that speed boost and be able to just punch and fly yourself across the map. We've seen it used once today. Kilson used it once just to run away on Blood Covenant against cha1n, and, well, it helped him survive. So
it is utility, yeah. I think that just also based off the picks, that nosfa's going to feel most comfortable just controlling that middle area, right? Using the double jump to get there quickly, but then also just to be able to try to keep your opponent in sort of the outer ring rotation, always knowing where they are and then choosing when you get a chance to attack. I don't know that cha1n is going to be down with that, right? Like, he's been a little sneaky. I'd say he'd been more sneaky than nosfa in this series. So this map also gives people a good opportunity to do just that when someone is controlling the middle. How's this one going to break down, though? This time we're going to be looking through the eyeballs of cha1n, who just won game number 2 and takes us to a 3rd and final decider. Going to immediately pop Peeker, knowing his opponent is over there, grabbing the rail. And I like that, right? cha1n got the heavy. He now can rotate over and kind of protect over here by the Mega. But again, I'm curious to see who's going to try to be holding down this center.
For the time being, it is cha1n. He also gets himself the rockets. Gives himself a significant weapon advantage right now, because nosfa doesn't have LG or rockets. All he's got to work with is the rail, and damn, does he make it work once, twice. Looking for a 3rd one, but wisely decides to delay that fight until he at the very least gets a hold of the lightning. Oh my goodness, how did he even land that shot? I was still on nosfa's point of view. That must have been a pixel of cha1n's foot that he saw through the corner of the teleporter, and he connected it. I barely even saw it myself.
Yeah, that was one of those miracle shots, I think, a little bit. cha1n, now 0-0, both players, very similar damage right now, but just sort of fighting for position more than anything. And I'm kind of waiting for this first real engagement that could potentially land this first frag. This is going to be interesting with these 2 items pretty close to one another. A little bit of delay on the Mega, and wow, cha1n realizing, like, hold on a second, gonna get both of these. He even delays that heavy a little bit, whether intentional or not, doesn't matter. That's gonna work out for him. And now he's fully stacked, ready to try to do some damage. Not much happening there with the Peeker. And I don't think he needs to rush this, the position he's in. He's in a good position, but I guess that mobility kind of helping out nosfa in this. And look at that, like standing still, not a bad decision at that point in time.
Heavy is up. cha1n doesn't want anything to do with it just yet. He wants damage, he wants frags. Now he's got to be careful, though. He might lose out on it, and indeed he does. nosfa picks it up. And now the Brazilian, actually with a bit of a stack advantage, but he's caught in a bad corner, bad part of the map. Not where you want to find yourself without any tools to really get out of there. Yeah, he could have rocket jumped up to the window, but gonna suffer quite a bit of self-damage, plus expose yourself to a deadly rail that would have been.
Oh,
nice.
nosfa on the hunt this time, coming from around the corner and nailing that rail. Definitely put a smile on his face, and suddenly cha1n finds himself with nothing, scraps. And nosfa has flipped the script a bit, Flea, because he's now sitting with solid control and a phenomenal stack. And now this is the scenario that I was talking about, where I think we'll see nosfa kind of in the middle here, cha1n forced to the outside. Now nosfa coming out, try to find his opponent. And what is cha1n going to do? I'm still kind of shocked that this is a 0-0 game so far.
You could tell that cha1n really wanted that light armor down below, but he didn't go for it. He realized that it was too risky to show his face with that hole in the wall. One rail would put him on a really bad spot, so he just maneuvered himself around there and secured the other one instead. Oh, nosfa! So quick with that double jump. Just falling right on top of cha1n. And indeed, this is a remarkably low-scoring game so far. Just one frag in 4 minutes. Unlike anything we've seen today.
And, for cha1n's sake, he needs to keep it that way. As slow as this game has been, definitely got to be careful. So it's going to kind of be like starting from scratch once again, as nosfa still with this big stack. And it just appears like cha1n's not quite sure how he should approach this. And this time, cha1n is caught by surprise. Ooh, almost gets hit with that rocket rail combo. The LG comes out, and that is going to be frag number 2, giving nosfa another pretty big opening. Now, can he make it over to Mega? Answer is yes. And he will still hold on to control. Now, though, he can kind of try to hold cha1n off from this rail, which I think he desperately needs to try to get back into this one. Ooh, rail from down below. Or up above, rather. But cha1n low, he's got to run away.
Yeah, cha1n. Okay, nosfa waiting for him. That's a good read by the Brazilian. cha1n was probably expecting him to make a move onto the Mega first, and so he looped back around, but nope, nosfa just followed him right on through. Gotta say, I don't think that the Peeker has really offered cha1n all that much utility so far.
No.
The Doomslayer, right? The abilities that Doomslayer has have definitely helped nosfa out more than the Peeker has been of use to cha1n.
I agree, and I think a part of that problem is not being able to use it from a position of control. That examples when the first time cha1n had pretty much map and item control, he was chasing nosfa. There's no real solid way. Oh, from behind. cha1n actually sneaking up, but there was no real solid way to utilize Peeker in a way that was going to be beneficial in chasing down nosfa there. So
yeah,
it's been moments of opportunity. The best Peeker we saw was that one in the opening few seconds where he heard nosfa up at the rail and got some damage there. But now, ooh, big push here by cha1n. Thought it was going to open up a door of opportunity there, but it didn't pan out.
nosfa now definitely on the back foot, though. A single rail will do him in. But cha1n unable to locate him in time. And now with 3 minutes left to go, the Canadians absolutely got to step it up. Oh, and that is disastrous. 190 damage to the face before he even gets to nosfa. There we go, Peeker actually making some good use of it, but no! nosfa popping off in the cam.
Dude.
Don't know if you saw, but man was happy with that one.
That was a game over rail if I've ever seen one. Holy moly. And he was low, right? Like, that could have gone real bad, but that is putting your foot down and saying, I can make this rail shot, and he's going to go up that jump pad. And the prophecy was fulfilled. It was 7-0 now. What started off almost 3 minutes, almost 4 minutes without a frag. And now nosfa has completely taken control here. And there's not much that cha1n is going to be able to do.
Fully agreed. This is going to be a win for nosfa. Adding insult to injury with those kinds of rockets, though. Up from above. nosfa doing a bit of a victory lap at this point. Looking at the scoreline, though, it was a lot closer than a 9-0 or now a 9-1 would have you appear, right?
I would agree with that. I would agree with that. I mean, the beginning of this game was very close. It was definitely 5D chess where like the pieces kept regenerating a little bit, and then once nosfa kind of had that control, and I think was able to just utilize that mobility as you mentioned. Ooh, no, bye-bye. But it's not even going to matter. With less than a minute and a half to go, nosfa is going to clear out the series. Now, Flea, does this put him guaranteed top 8, or is there still implications depending on next week's matches?
I was actually just looking at the scoreboard myself, because of course things have changed in the first 4 games, and I haven't really kept track of how that has changed the overall rankings. But the way that I'm looking at it, nosfa, before these points are taken into account, is currently sitting at 10th, but this is going to boost him up to 4,500 points, which should put him in 7th place. Now, Avik has played all of his games, so Avik isn't going to be able to overtake him. And then we've got Strong Sage, Dramis, and Sirius, who each still have to play a game. Sirius has to play 2 even, so I'm not sure if this is going to guarantee him.
Okay, it's to be determined.
Yeah, I kind of want to ask him, because he probably knows better than we do. He's been watching this, calculating every outcome.
You're right, you're right. And cha1n made a little rally here at the end as we were doing some napkin math here, as he did try to bring it back, and it's unfortunately not going to work out for him, but made a solid college effort there. Good college try. 10-6, our final score, and nosfa will take it 2-1. You're right, we probably should ask him. He probably knows exactly. Like, it's got to not be raining in Chicago when I defeat Rafa on the 3rd.
Actually, I'm pretty sure that he's in, because he still has a game next week. So even if he loses 3-0 next week, he's still guaranteed to get at least some points against Rafa. So I don't know, but we'll ask him. We'll ask him to confirm whether or not this guarantees him top 8.
There's no doubt that ZSX definitely knows the answer to this question. So let's bring him back to answer.
Dan, come on, give it to us. Has he secured top 8?
nosfa is top 8.
Nice shirt, well done.
I couldn't disappoint you. I felt so bad.
So he is top 8.
It kind of suits the Brazilian vibes that are going on as well. It's all kind of it's all tied together. Yeah.
Extras loaded. Let's go. Beautiful. What'd you
Good
think
job,
of that
guys.
matchup?
I thought it was great. It's entertaining. It's lovely to see nosfa pulling out some excellent moves. I think cha1n has an uncanny ability to stay in sets even when he's not particularly playing his best at all times. And switching strategy on map 2 was really interesting to see. But this is some of the best Quake we've seen from nosfa maybe ever, and that's something I want to talk to him about as well, is his chances going into QuakeCon now, because we saw today when he finds his form, he's formidable. So that was a good set.
Absolutely, he was looking really good. We saw him struggle a bit, right, on, I believe, the second map it was. That was cha1n's win in the end. But nosfa looking good, especially if he can put in the time, grind it out a bit over the next couple of weeks leading up to QuakeCon. I think we can expect some pretty great things of him.
Yeah, I mean, I think both players give me the impression like, hey, keep an eye on both of them at QuakeCon, right? Live environment, no excuses as far as that's concerned. I really got to give, I think, cha1n a ton of credit for his play with BJ and the dual wield on Veil. It was really nicely executed. I think it was probably one of the most. It's like the video you'd show someone in terms of like, this is how you should try to utilize that dual wield. And what keeps coming back to mind to me is that beautiful read where nosfa was going for the heavy. He rocket jumped up, popped his dual wield, and that was just like a gimme frag. It was so well executed. And then I think like that thing almost put nosfa into the corner to say, oh my gosh, like, there's not a whole lot that I could do here, and I clawed it back real nicely. But I just thought cha1n played really phenomenally that game, and of course nosfa taking the series, he deserved it. He played great. I loved a lot of his play in map 1 especially.
Yeah, but we just saw again the other side of the coin map 1 where we talked about with cha1n just unable to connect with any of his shots really, and when you're pulling out the percentages it just puts him on a back foot at all times, and it makes it such a challenge to pull off some of the maneuvers he has to do. So all credit to nosfa. I thought he played great, and I agree completely on map 2. The way in which cha1n adapted to use the dual, particularly kind of in close combat situations, was really interesting and just shows how much he values that map. But it's something we see time and time again, is that he's formidable on Veil and he understands the angles and is able to really capitalize upon that. But he does struggle on other maps when his mechanics just aren't up to par at the moment.
Yeah, that's definitely something where he has to smooth out some rough edges going into QuakeCon, right? And knowing cha1n, like looking at the way that he's been playing the past couple of weeks and his Twitter activity, there's been times where he's feeling very confident, right? He said, this ends here, that was the last loss of the season. Fortunately for him, it didn't quite pan out that way, but even after suffering more losses, he was always like, okay, I've digested the loss. I've learned the lessons that I needed to learn. Now we can look forward again. So I'm liking, like the optimism that cha1n has been bringing, at least outwardly, towards us on Twitter. And I do think that if he takes some time leading up to QuakeCon, he can be back in that old form of his. We see those glimmers of brilliance, like Reed, you mentioned, right? The dual wield use, the rocket jumping, stuff like that. And I really hope we get to see more of that consistently by the time we hit the finals.
Yeah, it's going to be the big difference between someone who's just really good in the QPL and someone who has the ability to take home the belt. Because if you could just grant that 100% consistency to someone like cha1n, I think he absolutely has all of these different showcases where like how he's thinking about the game and how he approaches the game make a ton of sense. The cleanup aspect was the part that was kind of hard for pushing the game forward.
Right. Now, as far as I believe, we do have nosfa with us, getting ready for a bit of an interview with him. So we've got an opportunity to pick his brain. nosfa, congratulations. That was one hell of a series.
Thank you, Flea. Hello, guys. Hello, everyone.
Congrats, man.
Thanks.
Wait.
I first off, I think great series. I hate to be the guy that asked you about the game that you lost, but I mean, you played really great in game 1, game 3, and in game 2, it seemed like there was some troubles there. Talk to us about game 2. Like, how do you feel about game 2? We thought cha1n's dual wheel was really on point, but would love to hear it from your perspective.
Yeah. I was not expecting him to use his dual wield so well because Veil is such a tight map. You don't have that much of a room to, use the dual wield.
Right.
So I think he got a really good momentum on his first frag. Like I was definitely not expecting him to do that rocket jump from the rail and catch me on heavy there. And then after that, it was really hard to break his momentum, I felt like. And also I was not connecting like my rockets. Felt a little bit off, so I don't know. Overall, he played very well. And I didn't manage to I don't know, find good placements for, you know, Eisen's turret and things like that. So
Right.
yeah,
Right.
I think that was
Well,
an
good
issue.
game, man. It was a great series. Nosfa.
Thanks.
So, hello, Nosfa. Well played.
Thanks, man.
I just want to understand how, more of a general question, really, how you're feeling going into QuakeCon and your expectations. It's been a while since we've seen a really strong placement from you in a finals, and this is some of the best Quake, if not the best Quake we've seen from you, and better consistency. So I just want to hear from your perspective, where do you think you'll be end up making, and what's your objectives, really?
I think as a, you know, as a player and as a competitor, my objective, my main goal is obviously, you know, the win. I want to take the belt, and I'm feeling pretty good about it, because I was worrying, especially in this game. Like I needed to win in order to end up top 8. So I think with this victory, that secures me a top 8 spot, which means I won't be playing the group stage, only the final bracket. So that's like already a good start. And that was my main goal for the season, like getting top 8, and then work from there. I'll be flying early to the States, like 10 days earlier, so I'll get a lot of practice there against the guys, against the NA guys, Rafa, Dramas, cha1n, Strong Stage, Cy Gibbs, so it would be sick.
Amazing.
Okay. Well, nosfa, instead of ending on a question, I'm just going to give you the opportunity to maybe say something to your fans, because we've seen a whole lot of support and cheers for you in the chat, and it's such a pleasure when we get to have you on stream with us for a bit of an interview. So is there anything that you want to say, anyone you want to thank, because you're looking so good going into QuakeCon?
Thanks, man. The South American community has always been supporting me, man, and I just want to thank them for it. You know, since my day one in Quake Pro League, they have always been in chat and you know, cheering me up and you know, showing their love and their support. And I really hope I can, you know, bring the belt home this time. So that's it.
All right.
I appreciate it a lot.
Yeah. Good luck, man. We look
Yeah,
forward to
thank
it.
you,
Thanks a
Nosfa.
lot.
Take care. There you have it.
Yeah, that was it for nosfa joining us in the studio. Now, we still have one more matchup ahead of us, and that is going to be Wheat and ZSX taking that one away. But first, before we get to that point, we're going to take a short break. Don't head anywhere, we'll be right back.